Welcome to Politically Basic. I'm your host, Kyle Campbell. As we always do, we're breaking down the basics of all political issues and current political events so that you get to decide. Leo Zacky didn't grow up in politics. He grew up in a family business fighting to survive California's broken system. When a global recession hit in 2008, Leo was just 17 years old. He left college, rolled up his sleeves, and went to work, starting at the bottom, learning every job, working alongside employees he treated like family. Not from a corner office, but from the factory floor. Years later, government overreach helped collapse that family business, and instead of quitting, Leo rebuilt, trailblazing new ventures in energy and food production, including a startup now valued at nearly $100 million. Leo Zacky is running for governor of California because he knows what happens when Sacramento fails, and he's determined to make sure California families don't pay that price again. Leo, thanks so much for coming on the show with me today. It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on, Kyle.
Well, your story is really, really interesting. Tell my viewers and listeners a little bit about how your background and your upbringing led you to an interest in political leadership.
When I was prior to going into my family's business, my grandparents actually adopted me when I was 12. And so I got raised by my grandparents, which was great. I came from a very abusive home, but luckily they stepped in. And when I was 15, I would go with my grandmother because she was a board member for the California Poultry Federation. And I would shadow her in the organization as I'd go to DC and Sacramento and meet with the politicians and the bureaucrats. And when I was 18, they made me a actual board member. And so I got that opportunity to see, essentially under the hood of what actually goes on in politics. And I got to see at a very early age that it's not this whole fancy smoke and mirrors world that they show us on the mainstream television. There's a lot of just ugliness to it. It's very corrupt, and the people that are in charge are not that smart. They don't care about you or your business or your family, but they really love being wined and dined and told how special they are. And that was a reality I learned on very early. And so when I see all these people on television being promoted by the mainstream media, telling us that they're the best and the brightest, I know otherwise. So we need real representation. We need people that have actually been in business, that understand that there are things that are wrong, but we have to be uniters and we have to stop focusing on this divisive policy stuff. It's left versus right is not the way forward, and that's what we need to do together. And that's what I'm trying to do here for everybody, especially the younger generation. I mean, millennials, the youngest millennial now turns 30 years old this year.
Wow.
Yeah, 75% of Gen Z will be eligible to vote in this upcoming election. And I can tell you that none of them feel confident in the ability that they will ever be able to afford a home or start a family. And it's causing a lot of problems. And this is gonna kind of turn into that one child policy they had in China. We don't have affordability here in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so fascinating to hear your kind of rise through seeing things from the other side of it, not the way that most of us see how things are run. Did you ever think about running for a different position or starting at more the local level, or did you just go straight to the top?
Well, from my experience in business, if you want to make real impactful change, it has to come from the top down. I mean, yes, obviously you can work from the way up, but it's very, very hard. There's a lot of gatekeepers and people that get in the way of that. And I'm not here to make a career out of politics. That's another thing I'm very much against. I mean, think about all these people that are notorious for being these, multi-decade involved in politics, right? You can think of people like Nancy Pelosi, and you can think of Chuck Schumer. You can think of obviously Joe Biden. But even people like Mitch McConnell, right? All these just ingrained people that have been there, and the longer you're in it, the more opportunities there are for you to become corrupt. And I think all those names would fall into the category of corrupt. I'm not here to do this as a career. This is because I want to do what the founding fathers wanted us to do, which was to put down what you're doing and go and take up office as a civil servant, do the best you can for your people and for your community, and then when you're done with that service, go back to your life.
Yeah, we're kind of missing that other part there lately, aren't we? I think
Yeah.
people.
And not that other offices aren't important. We need to have
Mm,
all of these positions filled by good people.
hmm.
But with my background in agriculture and in business and having already been involved in politics at the level that I have, uh, this makes me the perfect candidate for this role. I mean, not to mention the fact that I'm a fourth generation Californian on top of that with 120 plus family year history here.
Amazing. You ran for governor before. Leo, tell us about that. How did that go?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't win, but that was, again, I'm an outsider, right? So I
Mm,
ran in the last election without any help. No campaign manager, no staff, no nothing. I was just paying a treasurer to make sure that the finances were all above board,
hmm.
and everything else I did on my own. So without having any team or staff, I was able to get at a 48 overall candidates. I finished eighth overall, fifth in the Republicans, but number one in dollars to votes. I got about 100,000 votes. I didn't spend 100 grand doing it, and I just showed that there was proof of concept
Mm,
with what I was trying to accomplish, and so I've been able to now say this is a worthwhile investment, right? You don't want to just start dumping tons of money on things that you're not sure about, right? So that's again part of the business mindset that I have. You have to make sure that there's viability there before you can go and make that real investment. Obviously, I want to win, but being a politician isn't who I am. I'm just somebody who wants to do the right thing for the people, who has this knowledge, who has this these brilliant plans, for fake making things work for everybody.
mm,
And as a younger generation, yes, I'm a millennial, I can tell that the way the system is working, it's not designed to help the people. It's designed to keep us down. It's designed to keep us impoverished. And it's designed to take away our independence. And that's why you see so many people uh, being on the government handout. And it's
hmm.
not sustainable.
Hmm. I'm glad that you're speaking to that, and really great that you tried it out first. I mean, running for governor at the end of the day takes millions and millions of dollars, and so that is quite impressive that you were able to get 100,000 people. That is so many votes for someone who didn't officially fundraise or have a full-fledged team like many of these candidates do. So that's great. Tell us a little bit about some of the issues that your campaign is specifically focusing on.
Well, I mean, first we have to bridge the gap. We have to get everybody to come together and start talking about the issues that impact all of us. And as a Californian, there is a litany of issues here in the state, right? Whether we have this affordability issue, the never-ending drought, the homeless
Mm,
crisis, the low quality of education, the uh, overregulation. I mean, the list goes on and on. It just certain issues have, strike a deeper chord with whoever's being brought up about it. But we know what the issues are, and I think all Californians can attest to that. What I'm focusing on is bringing the solutions to not only end these issues, but create new revenue streams for the state of California that don't rely on taxation.
mm,
Like anything you want to do in business has to have a way of paying for itself. And that's what I've designed in my solutions for California. And utilizing our resources, which are being horribly mismanaged,
mm.
we can do just that and end the homeless crisis and provide a safety net for all Californians should they lose their job.
Talk to us about a good example of what one of those revenue streams might be.
You know that little town called Oildale?
Oh, Oildale. It's not the nicest town in California.
No, but it can be. It could be
Mm,
a massive industrial hub where we can actually utilize the resource oil that we have here in the state. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles. You go down to Signal Hill, there's tons of oil. I mean, you can
hmm.
find all sorts of fake buildings hiding oil wells here in Los Angeles. I mean, the
Hmm.
Beverly Center is an active oil field,
Yeah.
but a lot of people don't know this. So there's tons of oil. We're just not utilizing it and extracting it in a meaningful way. And there's too much regulation blocking us from being able to access that. So I want to be able to do away with the overbearing regulation. Obviously, I want people to extract oil in a responsible manner, but we
Hmm.
will be able to accomplish that. We can create tens of billions of dollars in additional revenue for the state just from extracting and refining oil here,
Hmm.
creating over 100,000 jobs. It'll totally revitalize the economy, especially in the Central Valley. And that just brings in more money for the state. But
Mm-hmm.
we have the water that we're not harvesting. I mean, we
Yeah.
dump nearly 1 trillion gallons every year into the ocean. We haven't built significant water infrastructure in the state in 50 years. We have a huge problem with wildfires because we're not managing our wildlands. We should have logging companies come in and do gleaning of the forest, not clear cutting. And then we can also utilize Cal Fire to become a revenue driver as well, because when we have them properly staffed and properly equipped, and our forests are being managed efficiently, we don't have these wildfires here, we can then get paid by having them go and fight fires around the country or even around the world.
Imagine that. Our our Cal Fire actually trained and equipped and having what they need to go fight fires. I mean, it's just sad that we have to plan to make that happen, something that should have been happening all along. And also, Leo, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we currently tankering in a whole lot of oil from other countries into
Yes,
California?
yes, we are. And it's pretty inefficient considering we're sitting on such a vast reserve here in California.
Well, it's inefficient and it's also really bad for the environment. Somebody, I forget who I was interviewing, and we were talking about this, but these tankers are just spewing nastiness into the air, but they only count the carbon emissions once they pass some kind of threshold. And so they're saying, oh, it's, clean and it doesn't affect the environment, but they've just chugged their way along all the way up the southern hemisphere, right up and to the western coast. It's completely horrific for the climate. So we're doing a lot of things backwards, and I think it's great and really nice to hear somebody with plans to get things turned around. So thank you for giving us great examples of that. Let's talk about homelessness. You just mentioned it. We've watched tens and tens of billions of our hard fought for taxpayer dollars gone into goodness knows where for homelessness, allegedly earmarked to solve the homelessness crisis. And homelessness has risen something like 6 to 8% during that time. So, what do you think the more specific fixes would be to help people who don't want to be homeless, who are, or help people who are chronically homeless get out of that situation?
Well, it's the absence of services, and my Homeless to Home program solves all of that. And as I mentioned earlier, creates a safety net for all Californians. I've been working with organizations like Humanity Heroes that are helping folks on the street and understanding that there's this concept of poverty pimps. This is the term that's being used, called poverty pimps. They get this money and I mean, obviously they're misappropriating, they're lining their pockets with it. They build these houses, these single residence occupancies, you hear about the half a million, $600,000, per unit condos that they're giving to homeless people, right? But that's the issue, is that they're spending so much on this, and then there's no services provided to folks that have drug habits, mental health issues. There's no job training, there's no career building opportunities, there's no education programs for them. And so it's just like, here you go. Here's a roof over your head, but
Yeah.
that's it. So the homeless to home program I've developed, what we do is we enforce our vagrancy laws. That's step one. And we give the folks the option of going into the program, or they can continue to live that way, but not in our communities. There's tons of federal owned land where we can give them a tent, and we'll send a bus by every week if they're willing to come back and get in the program. So we figure out what's wrong with them. Do they have a mental health crisis? Do they have a drug habit? And then provide treatment for that. And they'll be in these facilities that aren't brick and mortar, that cost tens of millions of dollars to build, but they will be secure. They won't be allowed to leave. And we'll have, until they complete the program, that is. And they'll have these small modular tiny homes. I found a company that produces them for $2,000 a unit. We can pay that company off at $75 a month over 27 months. And the way that we offset these expenses is by the work that the folks will be providing. So they'll be doing on the job training, earning a living wage, doing it. So you deduct their housing costs, you deduct their medical costs, you deduct their drug rehab and mental health care costs, right? All that. So they'll do things like basic construction, where they'll be helping out with my water abundance project. You give 10,000 people a shovel, they can dig a pretty big hole pretty quickly, and they can also pour concrete. That's pretty much a reservoir. Right? Rinse and repeat. Do that. We have a lot of public works projects we're going to be to build in California to make us sustainable and affordable. Dams, reservoirs are just the tip of the iceberg with that. But we're going to need to have folks that understand agriculture. And so we need folks to be learning how to raise crops, possibly even livestock, then utilizing the crops that they grow to help offset those expenses as well. Plenty of people will pay for an organic feel-good product at Erewhon or Whole Foods at exorbitant prices, right? I mean, if they're paying $20 for the Haley Bieber smoothie and $49 for Japanese orange juice, like they'll pay that price. And, again, food industry background. I've got 3 certificates from the food industry management from USC with that. Then you have forest management, right? Forest management, we have the folks going in, gleaning the forest, getting rid of the underbrush and the dead trees, and helping eradicate the bark beetle, which is an invasive species killing our hardwood trees here in California. It's a big, big problem, and we can eradicate that. But we have to have folks going in there, and they can also do replanting with saplings as well to help make sure that we have a very balanced ecosystem up there. And then sanitation, right? We have our tourist attractions that are just filthy. Nobody wants to go to Hollywood Boulevard. It's gross. The pier is a mess. The wharf in San Francisco, right? All these iconic locations in California that typically would attract tourists. Nobody really wants to go there. So clean that up, clean up our roadways. And the thing about all these jobs is that there's no real end date to it, right? Because you'll have to maintain the reservoirs and the dams once they're built. You'll always have to continue to grow the food. You'll always have a cleanup job. You'll always have to, manage the forest, right? And this also helps give them basic firefighting skills. So they get on the job training, they earn a living wage, they get their mental health under control, they get all these opportunities, right? You help rebuild their self-esteem. So they finish the program, they've got money in the bank, they're eligible for government assisted housing, and anybody who hires them coming out of the program gets a tax incentive for doing so. And anybody can sign up for that. So like, let's say any Californian out there loses their job and they're not going to be able to make rent, right? They're essentially wind up on the street. They can voluntarily enroll in this program and get that job training, that money. And as long as they can leave whenever they want. I mean, if you're homeless and you're violating a vagrancy law, that's what gets you in there until we're like, you're ready to go back. Anybody else can just come and go as they please.
That's really interesting. I think that's a really creative concept there. Now, Leo, you grew up in an agricultural family. You understand about this. I grew up eating your chicken.
A lot of Californians have.
Yeah, so long-standing family, good family name in this arena. Let's talk about the current state of just farming in general across California now. If people don't realize, California, I think the last time I checked, the statistic was that we were generating, growing, and creating about 80% of the food that feeds the nation. And so pretty serious when it comes to farming, but farming is hard. And if you have a bad weather year, a bad drought year, this could really affect, generational farms. It's make or break sometimes. What is the current state of farming and ag in California? How's everybody doing?
Well, the dairies are getting ready to leave again. The lack of water, the extremely high costs of just everything make it extremely difficult here, and the overregulation, the taxes. It's just, how do you compete? And the other thing is, a lot of folks don't understand is that this is a global market that we have to play in. California has major ports. They have LA, Long Beach, San Francisco, the Port of Stockton, right? These are all major ports, and a lot of our ag goes out of the Port of Stockton. We need to be able to be affordable to be competitive in the global market if we are going to have an industry that's sustainable. A lot of the root vegetables, the winter root vegetables, are grown in the Imperial Valley, like carrots and lettuce, for example. It's like, I think 2/3 of the country's carrots and lettuce come from there during the winter months. The variety of foods that we grow here, there's no doubt about that. We're the world leader in producing strawberries and almonds and artichokes. Strawberries,
garlic, right? We got garlic. We got
definitely
cotton.
a lot of garlic. Oh yeah, garlic.
Yeah.
There's tons. Like, we have the most wine grapes in the country, the most walnuts, more oranges than Florida, more peaches than Georgia. I mean, the list goes on and on. If we don't have abundant, affordable water, it's going to be very difficult to be able to not only produce, because when you drive up the 99, right? How heartbreaking is it to see all those uprooted trees, right?
Yeah.
And people don't understand that it takes anywhere from 5 to 7 years for these trees to become mature enough to produce food. So when you have people that are being restricted with their water, for example, right now, farmers are being restricted to 1.65 cubic feet per acre. And to give some understanding to what that is, it takes 2.25 cubic feet per acre to sustain citrus. It takes 4.5 cubic feet per acre to sustain almonds. So farmers are cutting down, and these small independent farmers that have been there 5, 6, 7 generations with their 50, 100, 250 acres, right?
Yeah.
Producing these crops, they're getting they're not able to make ends meet, especially with the high taxes here in California. And so they're forced to sell. And so a big megacorp comes in, buys up their land, rips everything out so they can take that allocation of water and move it elsewhere.
Why was Bill Gates buying so much farmland?
Well, Bill Gates is a horrible person. He's one of these transhumanist globalists. I mean, you could ask the question, why is he uh, genetically modifying mosquitoes in Colombia to carry, vaccines, right? There's just a lot of sick and twisted people out there. I mean, he's got his appeal company, right, where they have that it's now been approved by the FDA where they spray it on fruit. It's supposed to
Yeah.
like help increase the shelf life, but it's full of chemicals. It's not good for you. I mean, look, who controls the food?
Yeah.
If you control the food and you control the water and you control the energy source, you control everything essentially, right?
Well, it's
He's a
scary, and I
supervillain.
think I think it's important that people understand how critical it is that we protect these farming families and these farms here in California and get them back. So many of them have folded, they've fled, and we have to get back to producing just as much, if not more, because it means so much, not just to our country, but to the whole world. So I'm grateful to have a conversation with someone who understands this world and why it's so important that we support these long-standing generational farming families.
And there's so many other things too. Like there's so many jobs. Like people don't understand how many hands actually touch their food before it gets to their plate. I mean, the people planting the crops, harvesting them, trucking them, processing them, packaging them, trucking them again, bailing them out, getting rid of the warehouses. I mean, stocking them on the shelves. The person who prepares that food, you're
Yeah.
talking about 50 to 100 pairs of hands touching that
Yeah.
item before it gets to your plate.
So important. So important. I want to divert really quickly and get your thought on this because of your family business and the way that you were brought up and sort of educated in the, I guess, school of hard farming knocks, let's call it, right? There's this new wave of socialist candidates cropping up. They're not just the Mom Donnies. We're seeing some here in California too, and all across the nation who reject this rugged individualism. That's what they say is a bad thing. But your family had great success here through that way of life, essentially. Where do you see politics in the US headed as this kind of socialist way of thinking gains popularity?
I think it's gaining popularity because the younger generations and just the people in general, right, are not seeing any significant changes. They're so disillusioned and disenfranchised by both parties. I mean, there's Republicans that are disillusioned with the Republican Party and they hate the establishment that's taken over there. You have Democrats that are just seeing all this hateful rhetoric coming out of that side. So you've lost the middle completely. And I think the vast majority of us fall somewhere in the middle, whether you lean a little left or a little right. We're all pretty much in the middle. And the extreme rhetoric, the hate, and this divisiveness isn't helping. And then people can just simply go outside and see homeless people defecating in the
Yeah.
street and their gas being damn near $6 and their friends unable to afford things and or worse, moving out of the state or themselves moving out of the state, the criminality, the lack of education. I mean, all these issues and all the promises you always hear politicians getting out there. I'm going to change this. This is wrong. This is bad. We got to fix it. They never tell you how they're going to do it. And then if they get into office, nothing ever changes because everybody's too busy arguing partisan politics. So yeah, something completely different like socialism, which a lot of them haven't experienced, sounds great because they're like, this whole system's broken. I'm so desperate for change and anything different. I'm going to go that direction.
Yeah, I sure hope people figure it out because there seems to be some fascination with trying socialism here in the United States. It sounds good in theory. In practice, it's a total nation killer. It's just
Right. Well, but that's the
horrific.
absence of that's because people haven't been educated, right? The people who will tell you hard knows that it doesn't work is either very well versed in history or immigrated to this country from a communist country. And you can ask anybody from Vietnam that immigrated here, anybody from the old Soviet Union, or someone who came from Cuba or Venezuela. They will adamantly tell you how horrible socialism is. And we've become very comfortable in this country, and the education's not there. I mean, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it. I'm a history aficionado.
Good.
I'm
Good.
very aware of how not functional socialism is. And it doesn't because all it doesn't bring the bottom up. It brings everybody down to this not great level. And then that's when you see things like, famine take place. So we can avoid that, but we need to have leaders that aren't in it for the self-serving reasons. I'm not here. I don't trust me. I'm going against everything in my heart of hearts that says, don't be a public figure. Don't do this. Like, just stay anonymous. Just create your generational wealth. Be able to take care of your family and just stay out of the limelight. But I can't stand idly by and watch my country, especially my state of California, go to crap anymore. We have to understand the power of one is so incredibly powerful. People are being disenfranchised with the way that they vote because they feel that their vote doesn't mean anything. So they just say, screw it. Everything's bigger than me. And I'm telling everybody out there that you are the most powerful force out there, but you have to understand and embrace that power. Go out and cast your vote. Go and speak your mind. Go and do something because you can make that change. You can make that impact. I want to give people that power, but we have to come together if we're really going to be able to make it happen. No more left, no more right. We know what the problems are. Everybody wants to live in a safe community. Everybody wants to have affordability. Everybody wants to know that their kids are going to be taken care of and that there's opportunities for them and their future. We can do that. It's not difficult, but we have to stop fighting based on party lines alone.
Yeah, there's a lot of distraction going on right now. And, you can't just stay out of the limelight and create a family and build your generational wealth with the way things are going in California right now. So in order to accomplish your goals, you almost have to get out there. But we know that it's difficult. You're exposing yourself to a lot of scrutiny and sometimes criticism, just because people aren't as well versed as you are, and so they are going to take it a certain way. So we get it, and just so people know how tough this is. You participated in that CBS News Julie Watts interview with all of the gubernatorial candidates. That was the interview that infamously tanked Katie Porter's chances in this race. I mean, at that moment, she was the front runner. And now people kind of can't believe she's still in the race, but whatever. That's how the game is played. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
I thought it was a great interview. She really did a good job of being an actual investigative journalist, and I think people that have something to hide really hate investigative journalists who do a good job because all of a sudden they start digging up all the real facts that can compromise who they actually are as opposed to who they're perceived as. I thought it was a good interview. I mean, she definitely asked some, I guess, tough questions. I mean, but I don't have anything to hide, so it wasn't really an issue for me. I think it was a great opportunity. I don't think I've even seen the whole interview that I did. I mean, I was there, I did it, but I haven't watched it. I don't know how it aired or not, but
I think the interview got hijacked by the Katie Porter segment. Truly, I mean, I think
probably.
that's like what I went back and I watched some of it, and you did well. And I do think Julie did a great job. But wow, that went off the rails. That's kind of media understanding 101 is
It's sensationalism. I mean,
Yeah.
look, they're in it for it's a business, right? And it's all about making money, right? The more viewers they have, if you have the thing that's sensational that everybody wants to watch, right, then you get more money for your advertising dollars that because you're selling the airtime. I mean,
Yeah.
that's unfortunately what it boils down to. Like, God forbid you'd want to put out the good information and the truth in someone who's viable. No, no, no. Why do the right thing when we can make money? But that's the other problem is that everybody nowadays is so caught up in this rat race and that everything's
Mm,
about money. People have gotten away from religion and God because that's not important. It's the almighty dollar.
mm-hmm. Well, she's just trucking along, and they have brought Eric Swalwell in to
Yeah.
see if he has any traction. The issue there with him is that apparently he doesn't actually legitimately live in the state. I don't know about
Right.
you, Leo, but I kind of feel like maybe if you want to vote for someone to run the state, they should actually probably live here. Do you think anything's going to be done about that, or do you think that they're just going to let that float and he'll just be on the ballot with everybody else?
Well, according to the way it's written in the paperwork, it's up to the discretion of the Secretary of State.
So,
So
yes, he's going to stay on the ballot.
I wouldn't be surprised. Is that fair to the people of California? No, because the rules are is you're supposed to have been living here in California and paying taxes for 5 consecutive years. This is your primary residence.
Hmm.
This is where you pay your taxes. You have to be 18 years old, a U.S. citizen, and not a felon. Those are the five
Hmm.
requirements to be governor in California.
Well, that's a pretty low threshold, I guess. Well, and he can't even do that. So, no, I think that they're going to just bulldoze the system and not talk about it, and he'll just keep on trucking. But it'll be interesting. Let's talk about this jungle primary for a second. Now, you've been through this before. It doesn't work as, one Republican and one Democrat will end up on the ballot. It's just whomever the top two vote getters are through the primary end up going forward to the actual election. How are you going to approach it this time? What's your strategy around the primary under this system?
Well, yeah, the jungle primary is a mess. Well, I actually have a proper team now. I'm working with a lot of folks that were on RFK's presidential
Mm,
campaign as well as the Trump transition team. There's a lot going on uh, behind the scenes. I've got a really great interview coming up with Dr. Phil that's supposed to air the first week of February.
mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about that. That's going to help get me out there. We've got some great fundraisers that we're putting together. We're going to have a state of the border event in March that we're working on putting together with Jason Jones. So we're just doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I'll be meeting with a lot of people that are higher up in the GOP, but also not just staying with the GOP. I'm talking to everybody. I'm talking to libertarians. I'm talking to Democrats. I'm talking to Californians
Mm,
that are just sick and tired of being lied to and not getting things done. And showing folks that there is a way that we can come together. We got to stop fighting each other on this stuff. We all know what the problems are. I'm here to unite everybody. And the other concept that I'm doing is when I'm elected, I'm going to sit down and break bread with every single
mm,
member of the legislature. And I want to get to know them on a personal level. I want to understand who they are and why they think the way they think and just build a real relationship with them. Because if you can understand who they are and why they might feel a certain way and operate that way and build an honest human connection, which nobody's doing right now, right? It's all you're a Republican, you're a racist, you're a Democrat, you're an idiot, end of conversation. I want to know why people feel this way
mm,
and show them that this isn't about a left or right thing. We have people that are literally dying of overdoses in our street. We have people that can't afford to eat, that can't afford to start a business, that can't afford to live here, and they're fleeing. This is not sustainable.
mm-hmm.
So
Well,
we have
you
to work
love to
together.
hear it. You love to hear it because I think the people, the voters, are very ready to see a conclusion to this divisiveness, a change to the way that we are speaking about each other, more patriotism, more unity, more finding common ground. I think that you will get a lot of traction there. We have a couple of people running as Republicans who have great name recognition. They're at the top of the polls recently, which is really exciting for a lot of people in the state to see. Do you have a point of no return, so to speak? If you're getting out there, we only have a handful of months now until the primary. Do you have a strategy if maybe the numbers aren't getting there in the next few months of what you'll do?
I'm running all the way to the end. Like I'm not gonna just bow out because I have to do this for the Republican Party because this isn't about the Republican Party. This is about doing the right thing for all the people. I definitely have conservative values. That's why I am a Republican. I'm certainly fiscally conservative. Um, but the future of the GOP really does hang in this election, especially here in California. I mean, people are already frustrated with the party as is. And look, the polling numbers, I understand that there are two Republicans that are polling in the top two spots. But if you just add, first off, if you add those two numbers together, it's like what, 31% overall. So that's still not really sufficient to get through if one was to bow out and support the other, or however that was supposed to go. Um, and the other issue that you have is that you are not taking into account the youth. We have to galvanize the youth. We have to win the moderate left if you ever want to have a chance of a Republican winning here in California. It's that simple. As I mentioned early on, the youngest millennial this year turns 30. 75% of Gen Z can vote in this election. Those are the demographics that got Mamdani across the line in New York.
Hmm.
And if the GOP isn't working to actually get the youth activated and be able to win the moderate left, if you're going to continue to fight this fight of dying on the hill of abortion and gay rights, you're not going to win in California. It's plain and simple. The other thing is that great. What if I'm sure one of those current front runners could win in a primary election, and I know I certainly can win in a primary election. The difference is, can they win in the general election? And if you can't win in the general election, then what the hell was the point of all of this?
Do you think there's some merit, though, to sitting down man to man to man and hashing it out for everyone to back one horse, even if you're all not the exact carbon copy of political alignment, just so that another Democrat does not get into office and continue oppressing and harming the people of this state? Do you think there's some merit there in getting in front of those other candidates and trying to talk some strategy?
I mean, look, absolutely. But we've got to, I don't believe in them. That's why I'm running. Like, this isn't just some fun thing to somehow boost my ego. Trust me, this is the last thing I want to do. If I really felt that they were genuine good people with good intentions, then I wouldn't be doing this. But they're not. And again, it's not just about watch out for the evil Democrat that's going to somehow destroy this state more than it already is. We need to have a real plan forward with someone who can unite everybody. And I'm sorry, but the left isn't going to vote for a police officer. And the average Californian is not going to really feel an English accent as something relatable. We need to have people that have roots here, that understand the actual things that make this state move and function. And I am that person. Yes, I'm not a legacy media starlet, and no, I'm not an elected sheriff. But that's the problem, it's the fact that we have legacy mainstream media that is totally in cahoots with the establishment on both sides, that is keeping honest voices that represent real people out of this race.
You are one of the younger ones running. You've talked about galvanizing the youth vote and reaching out to them. How is this an advantage, and how are you going to connect with them to support you in this race?
By showing them a path to home ownership and affordability through making like giving people the opportunity to start their own business. You utilize things like AI and updating the state website and streamlining the permitting process. Anybody should be able to go to the state website and interact with some sort of LLM, like a Grok or whatever, and say, I want to start a bar. I want a liquor license. I want to, build a pool in my backyard, whatever, right? And it should easily bring up all the stuff that you need to do. It walk you through how to do it. You can do it all online, submit it electronically, and then instantly get a response on whether your application has been approved or not, and a date for an inspector to come out. And that cuts the bureaucratic bloat down dramatically. It gets people getting into business far sooner and earning money a lot quicker. Giving people those opportunities makes the difference. I mean, if one person starts a bar, for example, I mean, that's 15 to 20 jobs they just created right there. And you want people to be independent wealth creators. And having that abundance of water and utilizing the resources here in the state properly those are all things that will make life more affordable. The cost of homes come down. You get rid of this ridiculous things like CEQA, and you limit the Coastal Commission's power, and you allow people to actually grow and build. And all of a sudden, the cost, because it's a lot of it's labor, a lot of it's insurance issues, a lot of it is just environmental regulation that makes the home prices artificially high. And the process to get them completed, impossible. I mean, I literally am a mile as the crow flies from the Palisades, and there is nothing of significance happening there in the rebuild process.
No, it's just heartbreaking. I know a couple of people who lost homes. They're trying to rebuild.
Yeah, I do too.
They've been displaced. You drive through. I used to live in Santa Monica. I lived in Malibu. I've been all over there, and those are beloved communities, not just because they're beautiful, but because wonderful people live there. And it's just so awful to see. You go on the one, you're driving up PCH, and you just see all of those vehicles just parked there, and nothing is happening. So it's just been absolutely heartbreaking to see and to hear from Sacramento that the plan is to come in, scrape those lots, and put up a bunch of low-income apartment buildings. So I hope it doesn't
Destroying whole
happen.
Communities.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen.
But it's by design. This is the 15-minute city plan. This is Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. That's the other thing. If you don't have a leader getting in there that's very aware of this globalist agenda, then you're just setting yourself up for failure.
No, it's so true. There are a lot of nefarious plans afoot for California, and we've got to fight back and push back on it. Well, Leo, I'm going to close us out. I'm going to ask you 2 questions that I've been asking everyone who comes on Newsom Nonsense. First things first, your favorite piece of nonsense from Gavin Newsom. Favorite/least favorite, because it's all terrible. What's your favorite piece of nonsense?
I mean, pretty recently when he got called out at the WEF, that was pretty great.
At Davos.
That was great. I'd say before that, I mean, when he got caught up doing the whole song and dance about, I just talked to Josh Green, and then that lady was like, he's like, I'm on the phone with the president. He's like lying to her. It's just like, this guy is he's such a piece of garbage. And then also, I think one of the earliest things he did when he was elected is he changed the age of like I think it was like statutory rape. Like it was like a 10-year separation. So like a 22-year-old could legally sleep with a 12-year-old, and there wasn't going to be like a statutory rape crime. Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of weird, sick stuff out there. He's a piece of work. I can't wait to see him go and clean out his office.
Yeah. I want to talk about that legislation. Will you find it for me?
Sure.
The statutory rape one? Okay. Send that to me.
I can pull that up.
Curious about that. Okay. Well, we're just going to try to be diplomatic here, right? Because why not? I don't know. I don't have a good reason. What do you think that Newsom has done that has benefited the state the most under his tenure as governor? What's the best thing he's done?
Julie Watts asked me that question.
Gee.
Yeah. And I was like, that's funny you mentioned that, because I was talking with my friends and I before. I was like, I can't think of a damn thing. Honestly, I mean, I guess the best thing the best thing he's done is be as awful as he is, so people can wake up and realize that this guy and what the extreme globalist left is pushing is beyond toxic.
Yeah, good answer. I like it. I think that's a very good, honest answer. Well, Leo, thank you for coming on with me today. We wish you all the best in your run, and thank you for caring about our state. And keep us updated. Find me that and text that to me, okay?
Yeah, I'm going to be pulling this up.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Leo, for coming on the show.
All right. Well, my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Politically Basic. We're committed to breaking down the basics so that you get to decide. Be sure to check us out at politicallybasic.com and follow us across all socials at Politically Basic so you don't miss an episode. We will see you next time.